Hi, I'm Dr. Peterson. Thanks for tuning in today to watch this video. I want to talk today a little bit about the ketogenic diet and how it works. Now, in this video, we're also going to talk about the keto flu. We're going to talk about cholesterol and how that relates. And we're going to talk about whether or not the ketogenic diet is actually a long-term solution. So, specifically, how the ketogenic diet works. Essentially, what we're doing is we're taking the body and forcing it into burning fat. Now, without getting into all the major science, our body has three different macromolecules that it can use for energy. The first one is, as we all know, carbohydrates. We hear about carbs all the time. Carbs come in the simple form, which are very easy and quick for the body to break down, or complex forms, which take a little bit longer for the body to break down into what it needs to turn into energy. It can utilize protein for energy. Protein can be fed through the same cycle that breaks down sugars into energy, and it can take those proteins, turn them into sugars, and then convert them to energy. And the third one, of course, is fat. Now, when we have low blood sugar, the body kind of goes into a little bit of a starvation mode because it's looking for an energy source. And so when we aren't feeding the body sugar, it's going to search for one of two sources. Number one, protein. Protein is the first source that the body will go to try to get energy. And it does that by breaking down muscle and turning that into sugars to fuel itself. Not exactly the best thing when we're trying to lose weight, because the predominant amount of weight we lose will actually be muscle wasting while our body is busy eating its muscles. And so when we've lost the weight and we've, for instance, I've done this a myriad of times, I lost 40 pounds, good for me. Well, 15 of that might have been fat and the rest of the 25 was protein. And so now when I try to go back to a regular diet, my metabolism is so low because I don't have any of the muscle that I used to have that the fat comes back really quickly. And so this is a problem with going with a high protein based diet, because if we were eating, for instance, an Atkins style diet that's high in carbohydrate or high in fat, low in carbohydrates, and let's strike that, reverse it. So if we were to go to, for instance, an Atkins diet is high in protein, low in sugars, low in fat. When we choose a diet like that, our body automatically chooses to burn protein as our energy source. The problem with that is not only will you be burning the protein that you're eating, but it's also going to, choose to burn muscle before it burns anything else for an energy source. This is why the ketogenic diet is so good, because once the body has become adapted to eating fat, it's going to stay that way unless you start to feed it some sugar or feed it too much protein. And fat is an excellent energy source. It's long lasting. It takes a long time for the body to actually break down fat into energy, so you stay fuller and satiated longer. So with the ketogenic diet, we're eating 70 to 75% fat, 20% protein, and only 5% carbohydrate. Maybe a little bit more, 5 to 10% carbohydrate is okay, depending on if we're watching our blood sugar levels. Now, why we choose to take in 20% protein is because our bodies need to conserve the muscle that we have. Now, the cool thing with protein and the cool thing with muscles that are made up by those proteins is they recycle protein, which is really neat. Our body will break down muscle all the time and build up muscle all the time. And the cool thing with that is that we're utilizing nearly 80 to 85% of the proteins that already existed in our body just to rebuild new muscle. And so if we feed ourselves an extra 20% protein in there, we maintain all of our muscle mass while we're losing fat and burning fat. When we start to switch to a fat adapted diet, one of the things that happens is the brain says, I don't like this. I'm gonna die. It tries to do everything it can to get you to try to eat sugars again. And this is a withdrawal symptom. Drug users go through this all the time. If they stop using a drug that they're used to taking into their bodies, their brain panics and it makes them artificially sick. So with keto flu, you could expect a low-grade fever. You could expect headaches. You could expect a stuffy and runny nose. You could expect excess coughing. You could get coughing. You can get diarrhea or constipation. All of these things, and in order, your brain sends out these signals in order to make you so miserable that you quit the journey and you get back to sugars, because that's really what the brain prefers, is it wants to burn that sugar. Because it's easy. It's easy to break it down. Fat's a little bit more difficult. But once we get past that keto flu, then the brain says, you know what? I need some sort of energy source. All right, I give in. I'm going to start burning fat. And when that happens, it's just an amazing thing, because we do feel better. We feel more clear. We feel more energy, long-term sustained energy, because fat breaks down into ketones, and ketones will fuel our brain. Ketones also will fuel our muscles. And so you just got to stick with it. Sometimes that keto flu can last upwards of 2 weeks. And if you cheat and you take those sugars in, you got to start the whole process over again. And so that keto flu could last indefinitely while your brain is panicking and looking for a good energy source. So discipline is key. Another question that we're asked a lot is, well, what about my cholesterol? I have high cholesterol. I'm taking a statin medication for that. I got news for you. Cholesterol is not our enemy. Now, there's been research article after research article recently and they have discovered that cholesterol is not the enemy. Yes, cholesterol can cake up into the arteries and it can cause heart problems. That's absolutely right. But it only does that in the presence of bodily inflammation. Look it up. Inflammation is the key source to chronic disease. Plain and simple. So when you go to your doctor and he prescribes you a statin because they want to lower your cholesterol, you're not doing yourself any favors. Because here's what cholesterol is doing. Cholesterol is the key to having good cell walls. And so when we don't have enough cholesterol, what tends to happen is we get weak cell walls, and unhealthy cells lead to an unhealthy body. The second thing, it helps create bile in the gallbladder. That's where the bile is stored, but the liver creates bile, which is a digestive enzyme, which is necessary for breaking down fat. So if you're taking a statin and you're trying to go on the ketogenic diet, there's a high probability your keto flu will be even worse, because your body needs that cholesterol to create the bile, to break down the fat into fatty acids, so then those can become ketones to fuel the body. Cholesterol is a key ingredient to your body creating its own natural vitamin D. So if you're taking a statin, guess what? I'll give you 10 to 1 odds you're probably also low on vitamin D. And so we need that cholesterol, and we need it to be fairly high to create that vitamin D. Another thing it does is it's responsible for creating hormones in our body. And those are the key communicators in between our cells. And so if we don't have enough cholesterol, then we won't build certain hormones. I've seen time and time again somebody who is on statins that also has low T. Well, guess what? Cholesterol creates testosterone. Cholesterol is implicated in creating estrogen and progesterone. So we can have hormonal issues if we have too low a cholesterol. So let's stop looking at cholesterol as the enemy. Let's start looking at inflammation as the enemy for our bodies, because that's really what's going to cause your heart disease. That's what's going to cause diabetes. That's what's going to cause brain fog. That's what's going to cause your muscles to waste. This diet counteracts all of that. It's an anti-inflammatory diet because we're getting rid of sugar, which is one of the key inflammatory products that we put into our systems. Is ketogenic diet a long-term solution? Absolutely. I've actually been on the ketogenic diet for more than 3 years now. I get sick when I get off the ketogenic diet. And so I find that it is a great way to live. Some people, what they do is they'll utilize this ketogenic diet as an anti-inflammatory diet to quickly lose the fat while protecting their muscles. And then perhaps maybe they want to switch off to something else. That's okay. We have the paleo diet. We have the Mediterranean diet. There are many anti-inflammatory diets out there, and many of them are low in simple sugars, and we can choose those. But once you've lost the weight, don't stop keeping track of the foods you're putting in your body, and don't stop getting off the scale, because when we make changes, we need to make sure that we monitor those changes and see what's happening in the body. And so everything becomes an experiment, and it can be fun if you take it with the right attitude. I hope this video was informative and that perhaps you've learned something today. With more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can contact me via email or the website, or certainly talk with Allison and she can put me in contact with you as well.